This is an interview for peep-Magazine. We're joined with the most prolific ghost hunter in the Northeast, Rob Davies. We're here to talk about ghosts, poltergeists, phantoms, and we've got something really cool because he's going to give us some footage of an actual ghost that he's seen. So stick around to the middle of the video and you're going to get some chills. Let's get into it. Rob, thanks so much for coming down.
Thanks for inviting me down. This is a privilege to have never been asked to do anything like this before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, first.
Oh, brilliant. I've been watching your videos on YouTube and I find it fascinating, all the stuff you've been and the history about the places and the buildings. But, okay, so you started Dead Air Radio about maybe 10 years ago. Yeah. Is that where it all came about? Is that where you got the concept for ghost hunting?
I mean, I've always been interested in it before, when as a child. I don't know if you remember back in the 90s, there was things on TV, like there was, was it Strange But True? There was that Michael Aspel used to do, and I think it was watching things like that. Uh-huh. I mean, I was never really into like X-Files or things, but it was the real life things and people's real life stories of, like, as a child, you wonder like what is really happening in things like that. And then so I first met Chris that we started doing Dead Air Radio with, met him at uni doing the same media courses, and so it all started. I was doing local radio at the time, and the type of thing I wanted to do was already being done by someone else, so it was a case of, okay, if you can think of something that would go out on the radio, you can have like a trial run at it. So I just had this idea of doing maybe a 2-hour ghost hunt on the radio that would be broadcast at night, and it would be once a week. And I was given 6 weeks to put a show together for 6 consecutive weeks as a trial. So I put it together, and it was a big, I thought it really worked. We did places like Beamish Hall in Durham, the Northeast Aircraft Museum, places like that have got quite a reputation. And it kind of worked. And then we worked out how we could make it better. And then Chris wanted to sort of get involved as well. So Chris had finished uni. He was a year below me. And he got involved in Dead Air. We put a team together. So there was Chris and there was Steve, who ran a company in the Northeast who just did the events. So they would just hire out these venues and they would sell tickets and take people into like the Castle Keep, for example. And he was like well connected. So that was the format of it. It was a team of people who had different areas. So we launched it around about 2010. And it ran for a few years. That was pretty much how it worked, and gradually sort of the radio side of it just didn't, the station's not there now, and me and Chris, we still want to keep doing it. So I was like, we need to, maybe radio is not the way anymore. Maybe it's more, people want a more visual thing. So we looked into the video side of it, and we got the YouTube thing going, and so it's sort of been going along since 2018, the YouTube channel now. So
the YouTube channel's Dead Air, isn't it?
Dead Air.
Yeah. So anyone out there really into ghosts and supernatural and the phenomenon, go and check out. We'll put it up on the screen for you as well. Dead Air YouTube. Should check that out. It's great. I've actually, just on the point of the radio, kind of the audio clips within. It's not the Dead Air radio. It's a separate thing that maybe on SoundCloud or something like that.
Yeah, Mixcloud. Yeah,
Mixcloud, but it's still Dead Air, isn't it?
Yeah, we put a lot of our old content out because some of it's coming up to 10 years old now. And some of the more, the ones we put up recently, you listen back to them and you listen to yourself and you're just like, oh, I sounded like that 10 years ago, and it's horrible. But obviously, some of the places that we went to are places you can't go now.
Yeah,
like the Cooperage. that place has been abandoned for nearly a decade. So
the Cooperage, yeah. Well, that's the one I've actually heard. I think there sounds like there's about 4 of you going there.
Yeah, there was myself. Chris was there, sort of producing it in the background. There was Steve, and a member of our team called D. There was a couple of members of staff that they wanted to. I mean, that night, I can't really think about how privileged I was back to be able to get that, because they don't do ghost hunts in there yet. This is apparently the most haunted place in Newcastle, and I say apparently. I think there is nowhere that comes close to it in terms of people's experiences. Staff, I've got books that go back to the early 90s where they talk about the Cooperage, and it's like members of staff say this, have experienced that, and I've got books that have come out. They all say the same things, and then when I went and we were interviewing bar staff that work in the Cooperage, and they say the exact same things. The little girl, like a cleaner, has seen her, and it's it's like the same things, and it's like so consistent.
Really,
the staff who've quit their jobs that used to work there, that just were like, that place, just I can't go in there. Sorry, I can't go in there. After it shut, I'm not going in there at night.
Yeah.
So we got access to it. And we were very privileged, and if I knew that was going to be the last time I'd ever set foot in that building, it would, I'd have made the most of it. But there was strange things that night. Things like toilets, the hand dryers were going off, and there was nobody upstairs. There was footsteps on the floor above us, and everyone's on the ground floor. And that building's not connected to anywhere else, so it's not like you could say it's coming from next door.
Yeah.
And there's so many stories linked to it. Either you could say, well, maybe the old buildings creak and things like that, but the sightings as well, it was just, there's something about that place, and it's just so sad. Even today, I drove here, I went past it, you go past it in the car and you see it, and it's a sad thing to see that place.
I have been in, obviously a lot of years now, but it's an old crickety old building, isn't it? It's you don't feel, I'm not going to say you don't feel great in there, because it's a great place, but it's like you do sense that it's got a lot of history here. It's got a lot of things that probably went on here, and when you'll know this yourself, Rob, when you go into buildings or houses, or you get a feeling that something's not quite right.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think I mean, I quite like to think that I'm sort of quite on the fence with things. I mean, I have seen things and I've had experiences doing this, but at the same time, I think to do it really well, you've got to be careful of you walk into an old abandoned graveyard at night, it is going to be creepy.
Yeah.
Is that the suggestion? Is that because you go in there and you see that it's how it would look like in a scary film, or you go into an old castle, or you go into an old building that's dilapidated, it is going to look creepy, and it does have that power of suggestion over you. But then I've also done investigations in buildings that, for example, we did last year, Ripon Workhouse, but that's all been converted into modern classrooms and teaching rooms, even though that's the old bit where the old workers would sleep and things like that. And it's got like a modern day whiteboard and a projector on the screen, so it doesn't feel creepy when you go in, yet there's still things going on in there. So I think, the feeling, I don't really pick up on things in terms of like in a psychic way. I don't think I'm nothing like that.
Right.
I mean, things do look creepy if you see a dark corridor, you look at it and you think, I don't really want to walk down there, but I'm going to go for it. And the way to do it, I mean, people will see, like on the videos, it does look really scary when you see a place and it's in complete darkness, and then you just go in. But it's kind of like one of the ways you do it is you convince yourself to be a skeptic.
Yeah.
So I always, like, before I go in, I think, well, I'm not going to see the ghosts. I'm just going to walk straight out in front of me. It'll not happen. So you kind of convince yourself it's not going to happen. Otherwise, there would be no way you would do it. If you thought there was a grey lady or some entity in that building that you couldn't see, that was invisible, that could interact with you, you wouldn't go in there, even if you were the hardest. I think you've got to put yourself in that frame of mind, that a logical frame of mind, but you still go in and see what happens.
Oh yeah, mate, definitely. I mean, it's kind of jogged my memory because I went to York a few years ago now, and I'm trying to desperately think of the place, number 35.
Oh, was it Stonegate?
Stonegate. Yeah. So we went in that building, and I think I've actually got it on the YouTube channel. I think I've got it as Face of Turpin, or something like. Or someone's apparently seen a face of Dick Turpin there.
Yeah.
And we walked around when it was open. We walked around, and I'd done like an audio. I had like a little dictaphone, and it's some people are into it, some people aren't. But there's a lot of history in that 35 Stonegate. That's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in York. And we walked around it for like an hour, and it's kind of, you walk from room to room, and there's an audio playing, and then they tell you about the history. But it's just quite interesting. But the point is, it's unfortunate because that building's still there, but now I think it's a restaurant.
Yeah.
So it's very unfortunate, because I think like the council or something should actually keep these places open for the tourists coming in. But now it's. Yeah. I'm not like snubbing the restaurant. I'm sure it's nice and all that, but it's let's keep the history of these places. You know.
You know what it is? It's like it's just something I can rant about, because we've got so many haunted pubs, you know, and I know people might say, "Oh, there's no such thing as ghosts." To them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Even the stories, the legends, I think, are things that we need to keep. And an example of those, you know, pubs are constantly nowadays being taken over by chains. So it's like a national chain, and they don't preserve local legends and history. So, for example, in Blanchland, you've got the Lord Crew Arms. It's a really famous like hotel, bar, pub, whatever. It's famous ghost stories linked to it, and it's in you buy a book about ghosts of the Northeast or haunted Durham or whatever. This place is going to be in it. And it always has been. Every book, it's always Lord Crew Arms. It's always on websites, most haunted places you can go to. But yet, last year I popped in, and I was looking at it as a location to use as a video for the channel, whether I'd be allowed to film there. Obviously, you know, not disrespecting them, go in as a paying customer, stay there and film there. And they didn't want it. They said I couldn't. They said, you know, they want to brand it as a luxury hotel now. They don't want that, even though the stories are probably what everyone knows it for. And it's kind of like it's got no local feel to it anymore. And it you know, it's a shame. I think
it's kind of lost. Yeah.
Even if it is a load of rubbish, there's no such thing as the Monk or a Dorothy Foster's ghost. It's like, you know, it's still something that's like a story linked to the building. And I think you know, as a story, it's nice to keep things like that going. But
you have to, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. So I kind of want to ask you, did you have any kind of personal experience for like a catalyst to get into ghost hunting?
I don't think it influenced me to get in, but there have been things that have happened in life. When I was 3 years old, my granddad died. And when you're 3-year-olds don't really understand what that means. You know, they're still trying to learn, you know, what's going on. And about a week after he died, apparently I was in my bedroom having a full-on conversation with him. I mean, I've got no recollection. I'd love to know if I could be regressed or, you know, have my memories, you know, and go back and know what was going on, whether I was just a child talking to myself. Mm-hmm. But apparently, I said, "Oh yeah, I'm just talking to Grandad. He's got a stone in his hand. He's showing me a stone." When I was little, I used to go for walks because I was, you know, never settled at nursery, so I'd always go to my grandparents and go for walks. And I used to collect stones with my granddad and bring them back to the house. So it was almost like, you know, would a 3-year-old make that up? Who's never, you know, his granddad's never come to that room before. So it was kind of a bit weird. But I've always just had an interest in it. It's always been something that I've always been curious about. I mean, my dad's, you know, full-on skeptic, but yet he would watch the documentaries on TV, and I think that got me into it. But yeah, it's, and obviously the way I would speak, you know, reply to him would be, you know, you've never been to anywhere that's supposedly haunted, so, you know, you would never see a ghost. And he would say, well, there'll be ghosts everywhere if there was such thing. People die every day, and there's mm-hmm. You know, and, you know, he's never done it. But then again, in the last 10 years, I've probably done at least 300-400 different places. So it's that's what I think you've got to go to, where people are saying that they see things or things are supposedly going to happen. But yeah.
It's weird you mentioned your granddad, because I feel I've had a lot of experiences with my granddad, because he passed away a few years ago, and I was like really close to him. And yeah, you probably have heard this before, but you get a feeling first, then when maybe there's something in the room that's not quite right, and then maybe a smell that remembers you to that person, that is, directly linked to that person. And with my granddad, it was TCP that used to use that constantly. TCP, like dabbing it on his clothes, and loads. It was just like the TCP house. And then, unfortunately, when he passed away, it's like that smell's kind of ingrained in my brain. But I mean, I don't smell it all the time. It's just it's happened about 3 or 4 times where. It used to happen when I was on my own, just in a house on my own, whatever house I was in, flat, and then it would just be like a light switch turn off or on. It would be like there would be normal watching TV, then
right,
boom, your granddad's turned up, and it would be that cut and dry, and I would smell the TCP like very, very strong, like someone had maybe just dropped a bottle of TCP. And you start like hunting around, like what's going on. And the overwhelming presence of that person in that room at that time is, I wouldn't say it's unbearable, but it's at like point break. Like, am I going to see something here? Mm-hmm. Is he going to start appearing in front of my eyes, But just quickly, the last time I've experienced him coming to see us was only like about 4 months ago. And it was the strongest like ever feeling I've had,
Yeah.
Where I just kind of froze. I felt like really weak in my legs, and had to sit down. And the overwhelming smell of TCP again, and then just a presence that someone was like either here, like this close to us, or here. And I had to like get up and try and walk around. But as I was walking around, the air was so thick that it was kind of like he was coming through us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
It's quite similar. Yeah. When I was a baby, obviously when your kids wake up in the night, babies, parents take them downstairs and try and sort of get them back off to sleep. And there's times when I was a baby when my mother would say that she could smell her gran. And it was like the flowers, the certain scent that... Yeah. It's like, this is a scent that's not in your house anyway.
Yeah, it's not in your house, it just appears.
Yeah.
And then it goes.
Yeah.
Within a couple of... like a second, 2-3 seconds. Feels like a long time, but it's probably only a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
In and out,
It's like, even... I wouldn't know how you would explain it from a skeptical point of view either, because... Yeah. The only way you could say it is there's something in your room that's causing that smell. But like you're saying, if there's no source of that smell, then the other people might say, well, maybe you're imagining it or whatever. But it's kind of like when it's so familiar.
Yeah.
It's you question things like that, and you think, why? Are they doing it on purpose to give you that smell, to let you know they're there, or is it just they're there anyway, so you smell it?
Yeah.
There's so many people who have stories like that. It's like, it's always, I was just sitting at home and smelling, there's so many people who experience that. Mm-hmm. There can't be like, and he said it's been in different places, you've been different. So
different houses, yeah.
Yeah, so if it was like one house, you could say, well, maybe there's something in your house that's causing that smell, but it's it's interesting. It's interesting. It certainly makes you think about it more.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's because it's from house to house that makes us... believe that he's kind of following us around. But the bond is so strong, so I don't mind. If it was anyone else, I think I'd be a bit...
people think ghosts are scary, and obviously a ghost, why you're white, you look like you've seen a ghost. It's people, you always think ghosts are scary, but you think these are people that like you knew them and you loved them.
Yeah.
So it's like there's nothing to be scared about them. And the way I see it, you know, if someone was a good person in the real life, then they're not going to be suddenly turn into something scary afterwards. They're going to be it's the same personality probably carries over. So there's nothing to be scared of.
Yeah, brilliant. Grandad, have you listening to this? God bless. And another thing that interests me about your channel is your kind of like fearless approach to going into these places, these apparently haunted, evil buildings. And I think I quite like how you just go in. You're going by yourself, which I really admire, because if you watch Most Haunted and all the rest of them, it's kind of like, you know, the faces on the camera. It's all about me, really. Oh, look, did you hear that? And it's gone then, because you're too busy chatting into the camera. Yeah. But what I like what you do is, I mean, whoever's watching this now, if you go onto Rob's Dead Air channel, you just walk around with the lights off. The buildings are completely black. I mean, the building's completely black. You've got your camera. It's on infrared. You kind of turn around, so I presume you're looking at the viewfinder for your way around.
Yeah, I don't even take a torch.
You don't even take a torch.
It's more to carry.
Yeah.
So you can see on the viewfinder. I mean, people will watch the video and think, if I was in this room, I would see the books behind you.
Yeah.
And they would think that's what I can see, but I can't. I can only see it through the camera.
Uh-huh.
But then other people will say things like, well, you know, like shadows don't get picked up on infrared. So my shadow, if there was like a street light, you wouldn't see it. So are you seeing everything that's there, or are you only seeing infrared light?
Yeah.
So there's a debate on that, but I think the fearless approach, I don't know. There's still times where you do get a bit of, you know, that's a bit creepy, but I think
it's got to be.
It's come with time, because I can remember the first ever one I ever did was a public one. So it was, you know, I went with a group, and it was up at Chillingham Castle in Northumberland, and supposedly the most haunted castle. You know, TV shows have filmed there, and I went up there with my sister. It was a birthday present, so I think I knew I was getting it, and I found out that day I was only about 16 or something, 17, and we went up, and this was like in the middle of January, so it was like dark, and you just see this castle just appear, and you don't see it until you get close, and you're like, oh wow, that looks exactly how it looks like on TV, and you just think, whoa. And I thought I was going to see something. It was so weird. That
is this someone where you heard screams in the forest? Screams in the background. Maybe it's a different video. That I think you actually with another guy.
I'm trying to think which one that was.
And you heard screams, and you could definitely hear a scream. It was like in the wilderness back that way.
Yeah, we've had one at Killup. That was one of the old radio shows we did. We heard a scream there. And funny, up at Chillingham, we did a charity night up there with one of the mediums from Most Haunted, from one of the later years of Most Haunted. And we were stood outside. We weren't actually recording at the time, and we could hear music. It was like a harp, someone playing a harp. And I was like, Chris, stop talking, listen. And when you listen and you're straining to hear it, and then, yeah. And it was like someone was playing a harp. And like, if you know the geography of that place, it's like in the middle of nowhere. There's like no village next to it. There's no houses nearby. The next place is probably a 10-minute drive down the road. You're not hearing something from the village pub or something. There was someone playing a harp, and that was weird. And
I mean, that's got to be kind of unexplained, hasn't it?
Yeah. The mics couldn't pick it up. It was so very faint. It was like very, but you could hear it.
What's also great about your channel is the level of research that you do, like going into the places, and then it's not just I'm saying not just, but I mean that would be good enough. You going into these places pitch black by yourself, because of I think the last one I seen was in Whitby, and it was the Schooner Hotel.
Oh, in Almouth.
Sorry. That's kind of the first one I seen. And obviously you're walking around pitch black, and I thought this guy's mental.
I was so lucky to get that as well, because that was just as the second lockdown happened.
Yeah.
So I'd been on at them for ages saying, can I come and sleep in room 28? And I thought I was only going to get room 28 because that's the notorious room.
Room 28,
If you go on TripAdvisor anywhere, it's like room 28. And yeah, the stories linked to that. And then they announced the lockdown, and I had it booked like the week after, and I was like, oh no. So then I rang them up and I said, can I come like tomorrow night, like Wednesday? He's like, well, we've cleared all the bookings. The restaurant will be shut. The bar will be shut. Yeah, there's going to be no one in. There's no service or anything. And I said, that's fine. Can I do it? And he was just like, okay, but obviously you can't have breakfast in the morning or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because that was like the Wednesday, and then lockdown started on the Thursday. So I went on that Wednesday night, and I had the entire hotel to myself, and that was surreal because I wasn't expecting that. So it was a bonus.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the first ones that I watched, and you're just walking around the hotel, pitch black, and I thought, wait a minute, is he not with anyone? And I thought, no, he's by himself, and I think you're onto something there, just doing it by yourself. It
was one of those slow nights. It took. I mean, you see a video that's an hour long. That's edited from about 6 hours of.
Right.
So when you come out of that, you think, oh, it was a bit boring. But then when you edit it down into 1 hour, you watch it back and you think, well, actually,
yeah.
And that's what you see on TV.
Yeah. What
you don't see is the hours where they're sitting around and absolutely nothing happens. But there was that one in the corridor, and there's like a corridor where people see the old maid walking up and down. So I'd been up for room 28, wanting that to be, because that was where I was going to sleep. And then in that corridor, we've got like an EMF meter, so that picks up electromagnetic energy. And I had it sat on the little step, and I was like stood right back from it. And I know people say, you can anything can trigger it. I had my phone switched off, and I had, there was no electrical, the cameras don't set it off. And I was just saying, if someone's there, light it up, put your energy through it, and it just. And I watched it, and the first thing you think is, oh, okay, that's a bit of a coincidence. Okay, if you're doing it, step away from it, go away now, and then it just went off.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, again, could be a coincidence. Ask another question. Did he die in the 21st? Well, and I went through the years, and, there's a story linked to who it could be. So I knew roughly, and when I got to that century, it was it lit up again. And I was like, okay, are you male or female? And, female, it lit up. And it was it was one of those, I was like, nah, there's too much, it's too good. It's it was one of those, I was thinking people are going to watch this and think this is fake. Because that's one thing that goes to your mind. You think if you get too good evidence, people are going to think it's a setup. Yeah,
which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people have, tried planting things. And what also you see, I can't remember the American one. I know there's Most Haunted, but there's an American guy, quite popular.
Ghost Adventures.
It could be. Yeah, he's quite well built. He's got a camera, two camera guys following him around.
Zach Bagans.
Zach, yeah, he does the lockdowns, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the start, you'll see, just for entertainment, and I kind of don't like seeing that. I want it to be real, I just like your channel, Dead Air. I kind of want it to be real. I'm going in by myself. If anything happens here on camera, it's going to happen, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, I mean, I used to watch Most Haunted, and nothing happens, but you still watch it.
It's that element of
addictive viewing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be people who'll watch it for the history, and I love looking at an old building, and I want to know what's happened in it.
The history, yeah.
So that's why I always spend the first 10 minutes just on what's about the building.
Yeah,
because there's no point. I mean, you watch some YouTubers will just go in and just be like, okay, we're at such and such a place, and then they seem to expect you to know it, so they go in and they'll be like, is anyone there? And I think you've got to sort of talk about what this place is about first. And
you're doing the whole backstory, aren't you?
Yeah, and as well, it's not just about bigging the place up. I really got interested in sort of fact-checking places, because you find that a lot of commercial venues want like it as a business, and they like to sort of, some of the stories maybe aren't what the history books will tell you. So there was a video we did, Woodhorn, up in Ashington. So that there's like the old church. It's like an abandoned church, and there's the graveyard. And
Oh, I've seen that one as well.
yeah, it's supposedly one of the most haunted graveyards in the northeast, and it's supposedly haunted by a World War One soldier who was called Thomas Chalkley.
Right.
The story is he died in World War One in one of the battlefields in Europe, and that day he was seen in the graveyard by his family, even though he was supposed to be in France. And this is quite a common phenomenon. Loads of people have got this. You know, it's one of those in my family. People, you know, but he died, but then he appeared on the day he died back in Durham or whatever. But anyway, in the story, Tom Chalkley was seen on the day he died, and people have seen him in this graveyard ever since. So, great story. But I've got a friend who does a lot of the history for the channel in the background. She won't ever be on camera. She can't name her or anything. But she was working for the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. So, great. She's got access to all the info.
Right.
Things that aren't in the public domain. So I begged her, you know, here's this guy's name, find him. So she spent about a week looking into this guy on, you know, logged into the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and she was like, "There's no records of this guy. You know, if he went to fight for the Britain, there would have been a record of him."
Mm-hmm.
They tried Thomas, different spellings of the name, and there was nothing for them. And we went and we found the register of all the graves. We've got a list of all the graves, even the ones that aren't marked, and there's nobody in that name. So at the end of the video, I was honest about it, and I said, you know, I didn't say there's no such thing. I just said, we've looked into it. We've had historians look into it, and they can't find a record of this guy even existing. But obviously, it's open to, you know, you can still believe it if you want. It's open to interpretation, but you've got to investigate. Sometimes you go in and investigate with your eyes and your ears and see what you see, but you've also got to sometimes get a historian to check things. And we did the same on the Vane Tempest one in Durham. There's a famous legend that when it was an army barracks, that some soldier had an accident and blew his head off with a cannon in the courtyard. So immediately he's the guy that all the mediums, whenever there's an event on at Vane Tempest, all the mediums pick up on the soldier who had his head blown off by a cannon. So I was working behind the scenes with the Giles Gate Historical Society, which is where Vane Tempest is. And the guy said, you know, he's heard the story, and he said there was no such, it never happened. There was only one ever recorded death as a barracks, and that was when it was, there was an outbuilding. There was a suicide in there, but that building's off the land now, so it's not on the Vane Tempest land. There's brand new apartment buildings on that bit now, so it's nowhere near where the building is. So it was like a legend that's somehow gone down over the years, and now everyone that goes there, every medium picks up on the soldier who had his head blown off. But
it's kind of like the Headless Horseman, isn't it? It's like everyone claims to have seen him, but
yeah,
you know, it's just these, like you say, these myths that travel down in time. These little white lies that travel, then all of a sudden, it was true. Yeah, that did happen, and it's only a bit of a tale, you know.
Yeah, I think part of investigating a place, you've got to get someone to look at the history of it and say, did this person even exist? Because there's so many times you go into, you know, the stories about things, and it's like it turns into a bit of a Robin Hood. Like, did Robin Hood even live? Was he a real person? Did he even die there? There's so much that, you know.
Well, it's weird you should say that as well, because when I went to York, we looked for John Palmer.
Right.
John Palmer's grave, which is also known as Dick Turpin.
Yeah.
And then we found his grave in York, but and we went to where he was imprisoned, or temporarily imprisoned. I had a walk around there. Didn't really feel much, because I mean there'll be people who are listening to this now, and they know what I'm talking about. When you go into something, you can feel the history. You can feel, there was definitely something bad happened here, or something really great happened here, or whatever, you know. But and then we had a little hunt around and found his grave. But I didn't feel like nothing at that grave. I mean, I may throw it up. I've got a couple of shots of me at his grave. Yeah. And then I've done a bit of searching online, and apparently he's not even there. He's not even buried there.
Right.
But, so that, yeah,
'Cause he's meant to
like
be a,
artistic interpretation that he's grave. The headstone's there with his name on.
To put a fake headstone.
Maybe
there.
a fake headstone, but I've heard he's somewhere else.
I know he was executed on where the race course is now. Isn't it? That's where the gallows were. Where they'd hang people.
Tyburn, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, he got marched through where 35 Stonegate is. He apparently got marched through that street. You do actually feel something in that house, 35 Stonegate. If anyone's listening, check out my video. But it's quite cool if you're into that kind of thing. But yeah, I didn't feel anything from old John Palmer. But it's just one of them things. I mean, he's got to be somewhere.
It's interesting. I mean, I don't know whether his body was moved or whether it was just like taken away from that site. But yeah, I've never really looked into it. But
I mean, I've heard because I'm quite interested in the character.
Yeah,
I've heard quite a lot of things about him. He got buried with his horse, I heard, and then I also heard that his friends actually dug him up and propped him up in the bar, in the coffin, and they all had a last drink with him.
Right.
Because he was that much of a legend.
Yeah.
But I don't know how true that is, but you just hear all these wild things, that if you're if you're really interested in these things, you just, like, for want of a better word, you just dig until you get, like, pieces of evidence and you kind of piece it all together and whatnot, But so can you describe any personal experiences or feelings you've actually had on a ghost hunt? I'll just interject because that one in Ashburn, or where did you say before? Ashington. There's a graveyard.
Yeah.
But you actually got quite freaked out on that one, didn't you? Towards the end.
There was to describe it. There's a part that's around the back. There's like a bit where there's like the priests get buried, because I don't know if you've seen, like, priests always get buried like right next to the church. The
church, yeah.
So there's like a footpath that goes around, and I genuinely came out and sat in the car for a good half an hour before I went back in. There was leaves. This is
the Fearless Ghost Hunter.
Yeah. So this is like June, July time. So it wasn't like autumn, winter. And there was like leaves on the floor. And I'm stood around the back of this church, and there's like, you can't. It's just fields out the back, so you can't see.
I've seen it, yeah. Just
and there was a leaf, and it was kind of like it wasn't like a dry, crispy leaf, like like an autumn leaf that just fell off the tree. I mean, it fell off a tree, but and then I was stood there, and I could hear something like a rustling sound, and I'm looking at this leaf, and it's curled up, and it just went flat as if someone had stood on it. And I'm watching it, and I don't think you could see it on the video, but I just watched it go flat, and I was like, I don't know much about leaves, whether that's a natural thing that can happen, whether they just flatten out, and I just saw this leaf go flat.
Oh, it just like went like that?
Yeah, so from curled up, it just sort of went.
Oh, wow.
I thought I don't know, I thought that someone stood there, someone's standing right beside, this is here to here. There's someone standing beside me, and I was like, that freaked me out, like, big time. I mean, I know, like, as a ghost hunter, you kind of can't run away from it, because it's like you couldn't. But you, like, when you don't know who it is, you don't know what it is. Was it totally natural? I mean, it could just been a leaf dried out, and that's how it.
Doesn't sound very natural, though, does it?
But then we also had a thermal imaging camera, so it picks up heat signatures, and this is 1 o'clock in the morning, so night, and shone this thermal imaging, and one of the headstones was warm. It was a good 2 or 3 degrees warmer than any other headstone, and it was just one stone. And this, people say, well, okay, it absorbs heat during the daytime. I've heard, that it does do that. But then why did the other ones not? Yeah, that was a bit weird. I mean, I don't think for any, logically, I don't think headstones can, I don't know. But I did go back in the car, and I did sit there for a little bit because there's a little car park next to it, and I thought, nah, you can't. You've got to go back in. You've already recorded so many shots in the daytime. You can't just over a leaf. So I went back in, and it did have a feeling to it. Funny enough, even though I debunked it. I did a bit of history fact checking on that place, but yeah. But then there's people who've posted on Reddit, like forums and stuff. Some guy said he was driving past it in his van at night, and he saw like a fog coming over the wall, as if it was like not like a general fog, but like a cluster of fog coming over the wall. So there's people have seen stuff around there, but whether it's the legend of the World War One soldier, I don't know. But certainly, it's a very, very old, I think it's about a 900-year-old church. So
right,
yeah.
And one of the most infamous one you've seen is the R.A.F guy.
Yeah. So that was August 2015. So me and Chris, we were still doing the radio show, and we'd been in Otterburn that afternoon. It was afternoon, evening time. So we were leaving there about sort of just before sort of 11ish, because we were up there actually within August. We were up there for the anniversary of the Battle of Otterburn. That's what it would have been. That's why we were up there.
Yeah.
Otterburn, there's a story in the 60s of a woman who was in a taxi going past the battle site, and the taxi just broke down, all the lights were flashing, and suddenly she looks and there's a soldier like stood by the window, and there's stories like up there. So we went up thinking, we'll go on the old battlefield and we'll record stuff. Absolutely nothing, just a dead night where nothing happens. So at the time, we were just driving back, and it was about 11:30 at night, and Chris, he had it was a sort of Renault Megane coupe at the time, so it was like quite a low down car, and I'm just in the passenger seat, and we probably I was half ready to go to bed, and
right,
and then all of a sudden, like, I just saw this guy like straight past the window, like, and I was like, Chris, you just need to hit that guy,
right,
because he must have been that far from the window. And I thought, bearing in mind you've also got a wing mirror there, so I said, Chris, you must have just missed that guy back there.
Wow.
And Chris was like, what? I didn't see anyone. Like, how could you not see him? And he was like, he looked like it was, I could see him. And so
can you describe what he looked like at all?
At that point, no.
Yeah.
But then I said to Chris, like, we joked at the time. We said, we've just been on a ghost. Imagine if it's a Phantom Hitchhiker. So for a laugh, we're like, right, we'll go back and we'll see who it is. Like, there's definitely some guy, like, and this is in the middle of nowhere. Just to point this out, this is like the A696.
Right.
So you go past like Ponteal and Belsey, and then straight on, and you're in the middle of like fields.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, the things that were going through my head, I said to Chris, you know how notorious this road is for like serious car accidents. There's like so many. It's always in the Chronicle. Like, things have happened out here. So we turned the car around and we drove back, like going a little bit slower. And I'm like, so I'm videoing it, and I wasn't even serious about it, because when you video on an iPhone, you video it like in portrait mode, which I regret doing, because that's I got a few people pointed that out.
Right.
So I'm just videoing back, and you can hear the sat nav telling Chris to turn around, that you're going the wrong way, and stuff. And then I'm like, I'm sure he's about here somewhere. And then like there was this guy, and it's clear as day. It's like you can see him even illuminated by the car headlights. And then under his right arm, I think it was his right arm, he had a helmet.
Wow.
And he was in the old like yellowy beigey colour R.A.F.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was, he was like staring straight ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And we drove past about half the speed limit, and we were just like, that's him. And obviously, by the time we've gone past, he's out of the light, so you can't see him anymore. So we're like, that's weird. So the first thing I was thinking, I wasn't thinking R.A.F at the time, I was thinking he's like a motorbike rider, because there's been like accidents out there, with like bikes, cars. So we turned around again, so we were now back on the other side, going the original direction that we were. So I'm like, he's now going to be where the passenger window is. And then we're back, and then we're like, where is he? And there's like nobody there.
Wow.
And this is not where someone could just go and like walk back, into the house or walk down another road.
Mm-hmm.
There was no other like places to get out of there. So you would have to like climbed into a hedge or something. But it was just I can still picture like his expression. And you think when a car goes past you, if a car goes past you, you would take a step back.
Yeah.
You don't like let a car get to within that far of you. No one's going to be that silly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like he didn't even look. It was like he was staring straight like across to the other side of the road. And normally, like even if you'd have stood waiting for someone, if a car goes past, you always just like you always do. You always just watch things go past and stuff.
Yeah,
there was
it's
none
a
of that.
natural thing, isn't it?
There was no movement. He was like staring like straight ahead. And then so I'm like straight on. You know, we couldn't see this guy. We couldn't find him. No other cars had gone in between, so he couldn't have like been waiting for someone got picked up. That was another thing people said could have happened. There was none of that. We were the only people out there at 11:30, probably after 11:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
So we googled like that road, and the first thing we saw was like the picture on Google Images is like a helicopter that's an ambulance helicopter that's taking a crash victim away. We're like, oh wow, maybe we've seen like a crash victim. Maybe it was like someone like that. And then we sent it to the Chronicle, thinking we'll see what the Chronicle think. And it was then that they'd had a historian like properly look at it, and they were like, can you remember the exact spot where you said you saw this?
Mm-hmm.
So I was on Google Earth, and I think it was like these coordinates here. I mean, the guy was like, because we found there was an RAF accident there in like 1940, was it 41 or 42?
Wow. So
the guy had taken off from, I think it was Euston, or maybe Boomer. I think it was Boomer, RAF Boomer, and he was on just a practice run, and the plane came down in a field on a farm called Middleton Farm, and Middleton Farm doesn't exist anymore. It's those fields are now owned by like someone, another company owns them, but it was the same field where we were like, that's the spot where we saw him. So I think he's buried down in Exeter somewhere, but that's where his family. He's down in Cornwall, like Devon way. But like it was so weird that, and then the coincidence of seeing someone who would look like an RAF soldier, and then for that field to have had a crash during the Second World War, and we'd still like talk about that, and we're like that for that to have happened. I mean, there could have been a totally rational explanation. Some guy could have just been stood at the side of, I don't know. People can stand at the side of the road. It's not paranormal, but
probably not in the middle of nowhere though.
Yeah, that was what. I mean, obviously we then became the victim of like when you see newspapers over in a ghost story, like this has been captured on camera, and like you see in the comments, it's people like just taking the make out of it. So we were. The article had mentioned that we'd been to Otterburn, and so there's people in the comments saying, it's probably just a soldier off the barracks or something, and like Otterburn's like another 45 minutes that way.
Yeah,
and, like we were literally like halfway home. It was
What's quite strange, because I've seen the clip, and I think you're going to send us the clip as well. So maybe hopefully when we're going to throw it up when you're talking about it. If you don't mind, I mean,
absolutely.
And we'll put the backlinks back to your channel and all the rest of it. But I think we've talked off camera about this, where I've only seen the bit where you said it doesn't really do it justice. They've used not the wrong bit, but what I find interesting about the story is you actually seen something go on there, and you turned around, and it's still there.
Yeah,
I think that's quite interesting.
It was there the first time we turned around, and then the second time when it should have been like on the same side of the road as us, it wasn't there.
Oh, it was on the opposite side.
So when we drove past it, it was on my side of the car, like as a passenger.
Yeah,
and then we drove for like another like 30 seconds, and then turned round, and then came back. So we're now on the opposite side of the carriageway, but so it's on like driver's side in the middle, like on that side. And it was still there, and then we literally did a U-turn like less than 10 seconds later. So it was kind of like the time to have got out of there for him to have gone, unless he'd literally dived into the hedge or dived into like some really long grass or something and hidden, which would be like, again, like, why is someone out there hiding in trees and stuff? I mean, yeah, when it went in the national papers, they literally just showed the clip of the first time we drove back. So there's the coming back again. They didn't. That was never shown. They never showed that. It was only just the instance where we actually saw him on camera that they showed.
Oh, cool. So I'm kind of really looking forward to seeing the full clip, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. So can you describe what he looked like? Was he wearing brown uniform and he had
mainly
a hat?
He kind of did have a glow about him, but I think that was just the lights of the car headlights. I got no face, even on the video. I mean, the video is like what I remember him in my head, so I couldn't see any more detail when I saw him. And again, like Chris was driving, so he was kind of like doing like that. And there was definitely some sort of helmet under his arm. Like the way his arm was like that, and he was holding something under his arm, and there was a helmet.
Wow.
And again, it's like that's all I can remember. Like the shape, obviously he was, quite well built, and then the fact that he was just so motionless, and it was like his head didn't move, his eyes didn't like look at you when you went past. It was kind of like just fixed, which I don't know. It just seemed so weird.
It's you say like motionless and not looking. I think I've actually seen something in this building then.
Right.
I mean, because when I first came here, there's lifts through the corridor, and I'm gonna have to ask the guy here who runs the place. But I went to push. There's 3 lifts.
Yeah.
I went to push the middle one, and like it's quite dark, so the lights go off, the lights go on. It was at night, and then I actually pushed the one for the middle lift. But I mean, this might not be strange. Whoever's been here for a lot of years, and Paul will probably tell us even better. But the left one opened, and I was like, all right. And this was right at the start of lockdown. So I just went to get in that lift, and I kind of stopped because there was somebody in it. But the person in it didn't even acknowledge us at all.
Yeah.
Like only because you don't want to be rude and like put your head right in the. So I come to the end of it, and I just went, "Oh, sorry, pal," and he's just like standing there, and he just didn't look at us.
Yeah, and like, his eyes didn't even.
His eyes didn't even look at us.
So that's not natural. If someone like
that's what I thought.
Even if someone you're in a lift, you always look at who's coming. Even if it's just like who's that.
I've got to ask Paul about this because I haven't had a chance to see him since. I've only seen him a couple of times since, but this happened not so long ago. So I went to go in the lift. The lift doors opened. I seen like a third of a person. I went, "Oh, sorry, Paul." But it's just motionless like person there, and it was a split second, and I went, "Oh." And the doors closed on him. The doors closed quite quickly. And I went like, was that like a real person there?
Yeah.
Do you know that split second?
But he looked solid. He wasn't see-through or anything.
He looked solid.
Like, the RAF guy, we've looked at it and screenshotted it, and you can't see out through him.
Yeah.
He's like a proper thing. He's like a... But then
it's weird, isn't it?
The only other time I can really say I've seen something is in the Castle Keep. So this is going back.
Where's it?
So it's like that way, isn't it?
Yeah, just down there.
So it's about 2012, 13. And this is a one that I'm not sure. We were doing a radio show there, and there was only 3 people in the building. So there was me and Steve from Derry, and then there was the caretaker of the Keep, who he always has to be on site whenever there's an event on, just in case something happens. So he was with us in the great... I don't know if you've ever been in the castle before. There's like a...
Oh, I've been loads of times, yeah.
You know the bit, it's like there's a hall, and then there's like a gallery that goes around the top. And you can go up a spiral staircase, and you can get up to it, and you can walk around. There's like pillars, columns and stuff, and then you can sort of lean over and look down onto the hall below. So we were down in the hall, and we weren't on air, we weren't recording anything, we weren't, actually part of the ghost hunt at that time. We were just talking, and it was at night. So you've got obviously the railway bridges and stuff around you, and you've got the orange street light, because the street light's like orange, and it shines through the window behind you and onto the wall. So you've got like a patch there where the street light's coming onto the wall, and then another one like further along. So we were stood around and we just saw someone walk through. So we weren't staring at it, we just saw it like that. Oh, seen that? And then we all looked at the next one because we went along, so you should be going through that one next. And then a figure walked through. And we were the only people in the building, and the caretaker's like, well, this building's not open, there's nobody else in here. Outside, you're talking to someone who's like, and you think how high up the castle keep is, there's nobody walking around out there. And we ran up the spiral staircase, and there was nobody up there. And there's meant to be the story is he's a French monk. Whether there's any historically, I don't know. And it was weird. And then staff over the years have talked about seeing a shadow of a monk, a shadowy figure walking around.
Right.
It's been photographed before. There's a famous photograph. If you just Google Castle Keep Ghost, that photo, it's like as if he's looking around the corner of a. Like looking at the camera. That was weird, and it's one of those where I think it happened so fast that I didn't get a chance to like register it. Like I saw the thing go through.
I think that's what happened with me. Yeah.
You wish you could go back and replay it in your head and see what was it like. Did it have a head? Did it have a shoulders? And it's like I'm probably about 60-40% certain. But I don't know. It's like then people say, "What was it? Something flying past the window?" I don't know. Then I was looking at it the other day, and the bit where the train line goes right, the train line must miss the castle keep by about that far.
Yeah.
It's so close to it. Was there someone able to walk along that sort of bridge bit that goes past the wall of the keep? Was there like a train worker on the line? I don't know. It's one of those I'm going to have to sort of really sort of think about the angles of it, whether it was physically possible. But I think as an investigator, you've got to rule out everything before you can say it was a ghost.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Another thing also is that when you hear about ghost stories and you think of like haunted castles, haunted buildings, haunted this, haunted that, castle forts and whatnot. But what you've quite nicely brought up on your channel is there's been a lot of sightings on main roads or country roads, in shopping malls, like the Metro Centre, for instance, and hospitals. Yeah. And I was listening to one of your audio interviews about a security guard who's, he spent a lot of time at the Metro Centre, closing up and whatnot, and he's experienced quite a lot of stuff.
It's one of those. I mean, but you're talking about recent deaths as well in this. So it's one of those things where I always get a bit sort of like when on the video you don't want to say, but I didn't realise like how many people have died in the Metro Centre. You don't think about it because it's not a creepy old castle, but over the years, people have, for natural causes, have died.
Yeah.
They've had to, get paramedics in, and people have, had medical issues, and a lot's happened in the Metro Centre. And the same with any shopping centre. I would imagine Eldon Square, the bridges and so. I'd imagine there's been things that happen in there that never get told. But as well, the Metro Centre was built on the an old quarry. And there's been, you look on any old quarry mines, there's always, in the 1900s, there's always been, like, accidents. Mm-hmm. There's a chapel in the Metro Centre as well.
Is that still there?
Apparently it's, I got told it has to be there, because that was a condition when they built on that site. They had to take away another church. There was another religious building there. And I said, all right, well, as long as there's a chapel in the Metro Centre, I think, I'm not sure. I couldn't.
Right.
It's one of those places you never notice it when you go past. But, it's one of you walk around the Metro Centre and it's not scary. And when a security guard says that, this is so weird, and this is why I wanted to put that video that interview out. Because back in school, when we all started getting part-time jobs, one of my best mates got a job in what was it? It was in where Primark is now, Woolworths.
Oh yeah.
So his first job at school was in Woolworths, and he used to say that the stock room in Woolworths was haunted. And you go, oh, have you seen ghosts? Have you seen? And I just, ask him all the time, have you seen ghosts when you're working?
Mm-hmm.
So, oh no, but like there's a really strange feeling. Like the girls don't go in it, and it's like there's something creepy in there, and it's built. There's something that's definitely haunted. And then when he started saying Primark had to have an exorcism, and this is years later, and it's the same unit.
Oh wow.
So it's like, so the staff of obviously Woolworths is gone. Primark's come in, but they've also felt the need that something's happened or something's in that space where they've had to have an exorcism. And it was in the Chronicle, I think, when they got the exorcist to come in and bless the back stock room with this of Primark in the Metro Centre. And obviously my friend used to talk about it years ago before, and it's like maybe there is something to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean the Metro Centre, I didn't even know there's tunnels in the Metro Centre, like behind the stock rooms and that tunnel, so you can get from different, like the bus station to other places and things. There's
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, there's all sorts that I didn't realise, but yeah.
Yeah, because I think he talks about like bins flying open and like things crashing in, and then he walks around. He's got a like quadrants. He's got to walk through all the quadrants at night. There shouldn't be anybody in, and he says he keeps seeing like a figure in the shops, and someone's like milling about in the shops, and obviously there's no one there. But I haven't been to the Metro Centre for years now. But well, tell a lie, I've been a few months ago, but not like I was like working. I wasn't like walking around and. But I don't know if it's still there. There's like a Victorian part of that.
Oh yeah,
it's like in old shops and.
Yeah, I think that's gone.
I thought it had gone.
Was it the Antiques Village or something?
The Antiques Village.
Yeah,
well, he said when he walked through the Antiques Village, that's where most of the. I'm sure he said that's where most of the obscure things would happen. But I wonder if that's where the chapel was.
I think it was.
I had a feeling it was.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
It's one of those you walk past it and you probably don't register it's there, but I think it is still there.
It is.
I think they still have a service every so many Sundays a year or something.
Right.
But
I mean, you always get this thing about oh, it feels like I'm being watched and all the rest of it, and you hear that quite a lot because you mentioned Woolworths. What was the top of Northumberland Street? Was that what you said? The top where Primark is now?
Oh, in the Metro Centre.
Oh, in the Metro Centre.
Yeah.
Your friend worked there.
Yeah, this has gone back like 2004.
Oh, I thought for some reason it was Northumberland Street where Primark was. But I used to work at the bottom of Northumberland Street in a clothes store called Athleisure.
Right.
Don't know if you ever remember it.
I don't remember it. I haven't heard of it.
And then that downstairs, it's now called Scott's.
Mm-hmm.
It's right at the bottom of Northumberland Street. If you're walking down, it's on the left hand side. Just as if you would turn left into the alley to go to the library.
Yeah.
It's that store right on the corner, clothes store. And I worked there for a few years, and downstairs is just creepy as hell.
Well, I've got a friend who used to work in O2 at the top of Northumberland Street on the opposite side. Obviously, they're in the Eldon now, but there's a bit where like the buildings are like blue. And there's like the different colours on the top, and you look up. And obviously, you've got the shop front. Not many people like look up, and it's like the old style, like old housing style. And there was like, there was always like people like footsteps walking around, and you could hear like things getting dragged around.
Yeah.
But obviously, the skeptic of that will say, well, all those buildings are connected, so is it someone next door dragging something around? And you need to get up there and have a look. But
I think I've actually seen a poltergeist as well.
Right.
So I mean, this is all kind of coming out now. This hasn't been planned or anything. It's obviously stuff that's in the back of my mind. You're just talking, and then I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've experienced that. Oh yeah, I've seen something. But I know people are going to say, "Oh, he was pissed and he was drunk with his mates," but it wasn't like that at all. I was sitting at a table like this. I was with my uncle, and it must have been about 1 o'clock in the morning because me and him used to have a few beers, and but we're never drunk falling around. It was like either watching something and what in his kitchen. Probably it's a round table. It's a bit smaller than this. It's round. He was sitting just where you were, and I was here, and there was literally 2 cans of beer on the table, and we must have been there for hours, not hours and hours. No, it's just about like 2-3 hours, because we started drinking quite late. It's not like we're drinking all day or anything like that, but just 2 cans of beer, sitting chatting. Oh yeah, like I know that. And have you been there? And I seen that guy the other day. Remember? And then the can just moved.
Right, like across.
Yeah, like at force.
Yeah.
Like I mean, if he's watching this, he'll back us up as well, because he's a skeptic. He doesn't believe in anything. So we're sitting. The can of beer was just like there, and it just went and just stopped.
So it hasn't like been thrown. It's kind of stayed upright.
It hasn't been thrown. But what was a bit weird? It was like, I'll just demonstrate the kind of like force and energy. So it was like, say it was there, and it went. That's how fast it went.
Yeah. And what was his explanation for it?
Well, what I thought was weird is it stopped right on the edge of the table.
So it's if it didn't want to...
It didn't want to crash the beer off, but the beer, the can was full.
Right.
I had just opened it, just put it down there, and the force was like, whoosh, and it went and just stopped right on the end.
Yeah.
Right on the end of the table. And if this has happened to anyone who's watching this, it's like a surreal moment all of a sudden, because it's all of a sudden you're in like a surreal time where you think, did that actually happen just there right in front of my eyes, or did it not? I'm sure other people will be able to recognise what I'm talking about, and yourself.
Yeah.
Because it kind of goes in slow motion, and you're chatting because it literally stopped the conversation. And then it stopped on the edge, and we're just looking at it for like, seems like a minute.
Yeah.
And not one of us said anything until I finally said, Did that just happen there? That can just moved across the whole table and stopped. And he went, yeah. And then your brain kind of tries to comprehend it. Well, it could have been this, and it could have been that.
It's classic poltergeist.
It's classic poltergeist, that. And but I always think his house is a bit strange anyway. And it's how can I put it? I've always had a funny feeling in his house, always. And there's nothing wrong with the house, and it's quite newish as well. But there's definitely something going on in that house, because I always feel weird in it. And then when that happened, it was kind of one of the last times I went back.
Yeah.
Because it was a bit weird, you know, and there was no explanation about it, and nothing else happened. It was just so random, and he had never felt that either.
Because if anyone knocked it, the thing's just going to tip.
It's going to tip over, yeah. But what was strange about it is we were absolutely nowhere near it, and the way me and him sit, we don't sit like this on tables. We would have been just sitting like this, with your arms folded, or you don't really sit normally chatting to people when you had a beer with your hands on the table. I mean, I don't. But to be fair, the can just moved at such force and speed, and just stopped like abruptly.
So something's deliberately stopped it at that point.
Yeah,
so it didn't go on the floor.
So it didn't go on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just stopped right on the edge, and then there was a moment of shock, obviously, and then we just kind of didn't know what to say about it. What can you do? It didn't happen again. It was just a very, very bizarre moment.
By 2013, there was a very, at the time, it got national news, and we were lucky to be able to go in that week there was a poltergeist house in Sunderland, and it made, I think, the Sun newspaper. So Derek Okora had been in.
Oh, Derek, yeah.
So they'd actually seen an ashtray like shatter, like on the table. It didn't fly off. It just on the table, like something shattered a thick. You know how thick an ashtray is.
Ball ashtray. Yeah.
So we got in, like, it was a Wednesday night. We got in, and so the woman who owns it's an old, like a long house, like a long sort of street. I'd say terrace house, but they're like several stories high. And it was a woman called Marie who had the house, and she'd moved all her kids out. So she was saying that this thing was literally smashing the house up. And so you think, okay, what's it going to be? Is it going to be, a bit Amityville or something? So she was living with her parents or another family member. So she said, well, you can have the house, but, I'm not coming in with you.
Yeah.
So me and Chris went in this house, and we walked around, for a good 3 hours. Nothing there, but you walk around and there's like CDs and DVDs, like the discs on the floor. There's like, from the bathroom, someone's got like cream and just like covered the whole floor. There was a flat screen TV with a crack down it that was just on the floor. There was wardrobes with all the clothes, and I've just recently dug out all the old photos that they're on Instagram.
Oh wow!
So there's a wardrobe with all the clothes just out on the floor.
Well, could maybe show some of these, like
use the pictures.
Brilliant.
And there was under the stairs, there's like a cellar you can go down, and there's like a bit where the workmen had been, and apparently the workmen had just dropped their tools, and something had scared them out. So she was adamant there was something in this house. And me and Chris walked around, and all we were doing for 3 hours was going, have you seen this? This is smashed. Why is all this broken? And,
Yeah.
we were just analysing all the damage in our house. Every room was trashed. It was so weird. And we were like, off mic, I said to Chris, is she doing this for attention? Is she doing this because, Sun newspaper, she wants another council house, whatever reason? Why is she doing this? But then why is she putting her kids through all this and smashing all their toys up? Mm-hmm. Something's not right about this. But like nothing happened, and we tried everything. We started going around, was anything there? And then we went into full-on antagonising mode, like trying to get this thing to react, and nothing happened. Like we spent hours in that house and nothing happened. And then she came back, and I went out, sat in the van with Steve, who was like listening to everything. And then so she went in, and Chris said, right, I'm just going to do a final interview with her, and then we'll wrap the show up. This is going to be like, I'm just going to chat to her. She's come back to the house. So he went back on, and he's talking to her downstairs in the kitchen. And there's a massive crash upstairs, like, and you hear it, a massive bang on the microphone, you hear it. And then all you hear next is Chris going, get in, get in, get in. So I ran in this house. There's like something upstairs has just made a massive bang. Mm-hmm. We ran up, and there was a wardrobe on its side. Wow. And there was nobody else in this house. Okay? And some psychic had told her, he said, this thing's not the house, it's you. It's connected to you. It's when you went back in that house. And I just looked at her and I said, I don't know what to say, but that is messed up. And like I could see it in her face. She was crying. And it's like, you obviously hear about like famous like Amityville poltergeists, mm-hmm. and all these things that have been the Enfield poltergeist that's been turned into a film. And you think it sounds like a load of rubbish, like the families are just making it up and they're getting a bit of attention from it. And I saw that, and I genuinely believed that what I saw, and I think you have to see it. And I'm gutted it was only a radio show at the time. We weren't doing any video, but we've got the pictures of it. Mm-hmm. That house was like a war zone. It was just so trashed, and there's no reason someone would smash their own things up.
Yeah, of course.
Television.
Love to see those.
Kids' toys.
Yeah.
She would say that there was a doll, not a doll, like a teddy or something, that would just sit up, like without anything pushing it. Like toys don't sit up.
That's a bit freaky, isn't it?
The kids wouldn't go back in, and it was like I wanted to go in that house and for everything to just kick off and to be like, I wanted to see. If it threw things at me, I wasn't bothered. It was like this thing needs to happen. And me and Chris were so gutted that it wasn't. We were like, we need to wind this thing up, like insult it, call it names, like get it to get angry. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. But as soon as she walked in, bang upstairs. And she was like next to Chris downstairs being interviewed, and you hear it on the mic. It's
So it's somehow connected to the woman.
well, she was told it was some energy attached to her, and like I don't know, like I've never really. I'm not like a big thing on like psychic mediums, but that's what she was told.
Wow.
And like I don't know where she is now. I don't think she's in that house. I don't know where she's moved to, but whether she's sorted it out or whether it's affected her. But yeah, like I think when it's in your own house, that's scary.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, even if you witness it in someone else's house, that's quite scary. But you've got the option to leave, and when they haven't, it becomes like a real horror show. You know,
it makes you think like what's happened when people move house all the time. Like people move house how many times in your life, and you think. Even I was just thinking this the other day. There was there's shows on TV like House in Time and stuff, and you think. Even if it's not an old house, someone's lived here, maybe like another family have lived. How weird is it thinking that another family lived in your living room or in your bedroom?
It's bizarre, isn't it?
And then you start to think other things like, okay, what was here before this house? Just all over Newcastle, they're still finding like plague pits. When they built the Centre for Life, they found a plague pit underneath it that they didn't know was there. Apparently, there's a legend that there was one under the gate as well. Where when they were building the gate, they found bones, whether it was a plague pit. Or they find stuff all the time that they don't know is there.
I mean, up where is it? Blackfriars.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be.
Yeah,
it's got a lot of history up there, and it is when you're walking around there at night. It's pretty. You're looking over your shoulder, It's like a strange place at night, and that's got a lot of history. Every self-respecting ghost hunter needs the right equipment. So I'm hoping for the people who are watching, because they're always watching ghost things, and you're always using these like fancy pieces of equipment like EMF meters and thermometers, binary response devices, and EVPs.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with it, because some people love it because the TV shows use them.
Yeah, and
some of them are really visual. And other people will say, well, no, that like the really old school guys who've been, ghost hunting, the proper investigators will say, you just need your eyes, your ears, and maybe like set some objects up for like a cross and draw around it, so you know if it's moved off the paper or something, or set some flour down so you know if there's been footprints or handprints or whatever. So the old school guys will say that's all you need, and a camera obviously to record you document it. But then you'll say, well, scientifically, if ghosts are energy, you'll be able to pick them up with an EMF meter, which is it picks up the electromagnetic field. So the theory is, if people believe that ghosts are just energy that's left the body or it's in the atmosphere, an EMF meter will detect that, which I've had results from it, so it's worked so far, so I carry on using it. EMFs, I'm not a fan of like the digital recorders, because the camera microphone's already got a recorder in, so that should pick up the same thing that a digital. But I'll have to show you it sometime. Years ago, I was in the Biscuit factory. The one over in Shields. Down in that basement, there's like it's all art studios, like where
I've been in.
It's like the corridor is a big square, so you can go right round it. And I did a ghost hunt in there years ago, because people used to see stuff in there. And I took an old tape recorder, so it was the old dictaphone with like an old cassette in. And for years I never checked this cassette. And then about 2014, I just dug it out. It was covered in dust, and I just listened, and I could hear. I was like, this is that night we were in the Biscuit factory, and you can hear the people that were there at the time. It was one of the very first ghost hunts I did, like 2009 or something. And then all of a sudden you hear like something fumbling. You can hear me in the background, and something's picking this thing up, like as if it's like got hold of it. And then you just hear this absolute horrible scream.
Right.
But it sounds like someone stopped it and then recorded over the top of when I was sitting on the table. So I've never really gone like and showed everyone and said, this is what we captured, because people would just think it's fake. But it sounds like a horror film scream. It's awful. It brings tears to your eyes when you hear it. And all the time I'm thinking, what on earth is that? So I've still got that.
I'd love to hear that. I mean, could you maybe dig that out and we can...
But I always think
play it in the
if I ever showed anyone that, people would think that's just like me using a sound effect. It sounds like...
It sounds fake.
It sounds like a pig screaming. A pig's, like if you don't know, a pig that would squeak, it's awful. I've played it on the radio once and I was just like, it doesn't sound human.
Right.
But the legend is there was a murder down there years ago, before it was ever the Biscuit factory. There was a murder in that building. But anyway, getting back to the equipment, like my logic would say tape would work better than just a normal like voice recorder, because they think tape records like it's a magnetic tape recorder.
Yeah.
So it's more likely to record like a sound that's you can't hear with your ear.
Yeah.
And I've heard some convincing EVPs. That stands for electronic voice phenomena. So it's where you can ask a question, and then when you play it back, you listen and you can hear a voice that apparently answers that question. Sometimes, they can be mistaken for a bit of fumble on the mic. If you fumble around the microphone, it sounds a bit like a, which if you amplify it, is that someone talking? Mm-hmm. And there's basic things as well, like objects that you can say. I've got a friend who, the toys that cats play with, when the little balls, and when
I've seen them. You throw it.
Yeah. So the idea is if they move, they flash. Mm-hmm. So I've used those before, and the other one, it splits people really. There's a big debate about this online at the minute because it's quite new, and that's people who use SLS cameras. So it stands for structured light sensor. It's like a 3D camera. It's like a mapping camera.
I've seen that, yeah.
So they use them on like Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
But the logic behind them is that they've got the same cameras in Xbox Kinect. So when you're playing on it and you're trying to dance or
it's mapping your body.
It picks you up as a stick figure, and it sort of watches what your arms and your legs are doing. So there was a theory going around that players used to be on like consoles and stuff, and like a second player would appear in the game with them when there was nobody in the room. So there was people, there was a guy in America called Dave Chappell who looked into it, and he said, I'm going to hook one of these up to an actual screen so you can see what the camera sees. So it's going to map. And they were finding things like they were going into buildings, and there was like a stick figure would just appear in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And it'd be like, well, there's no body there. You can see there's no like. They normally go like a colour where there's like it maps the human figure. Yeah. But you'd still see a stick figure, and they were happening in places where people were seeing ghosts as well. So I've been using one of those, and they are. A lot of people think it's a glitch in the software. People think it's it's the technology in it, mistaking like door frames and things for a human shape, and it'll map a figure. Mm-hmm. But there's some. If you go on YouTube and look at it, there's some weird ones where people have heard something and then they've shown it and there's been like a stick figure like mapped in a 3D image, because it'll just map like a 3D room basically.
Yeah. And I think that, and you use that as well, don't you?
Yeah. I got a lot of comments on the video. So people are like, why don't you use SLS? Use SLS, because the people, fans of Ghost Adventures, love them. Mm-hmm. But then you also get the people who are like, oh, just use your natural sensors and stuff. Don't use all the gadgets. There's a fine line between using too much and too less.
Yeah,
so
of course.
With an hour-long video, I'll usually try and sort of like do a lot where I'm just on my own, and then get the things out after and start trying to sort of interact a bit more. But it's that fine line about being either too much one way or too much the other way. So I try and be careful with it. Like
on that subject, I mean, hypothetically, do you know if you went into a building without a camera, without the equipment, without the all the things that you've just mentioned? I've often thought about this, but do you think you would get a different experience if you just went in alone? I'm going to go in this haunted house and just hang about by myself.
There's people who say that. I've got a friend who works up at Chillingham. He's actually the landscape gardener, but he's massively into all the paranormal stuff, and he says that the people who get the most when they go to Chillingham are the people who aren't with gadgets. They'll just go there. Yeah, they'll be there because it's haunted. They want to enjoy a haunted night there. But they'll be like, so much happened. And then you'll get people who've gone with like tape recorders and like cameras and lights and all the gadgets and boxes of gadgets. Yeah. And they're like, oh, it was disappointing, we didn't get anything. Yeah. So it's like, but then, I don't know.
There's something to be said there though, isn't there?
There is. I mean, you would always, if you were a YouTuber, you would always have to at least have a camera.
Yeah, because...
But then there's also the argument that if something does happen and you've got nothing to record it with, then you've got no evidence, and you kind of want that evidence. But yeah, it'd be interesting. But there's that dilemma of if you turn up to the world's most haunted castle and you deliberately didn't take a camera with you, you'd be...
Oh, lots happened. You should have seen this.
This is going to be the night when it's going to kick off.
You should have been there because... Did you get any footage? No, I didn't get any footage. It's just, it sounds a bit...
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw that out there because I've just got a funny feeling more things would happen without...
Yeah.
Ironically, without a camera.
Yeah.
But you can't do it, you know?
It depends like what they are as well, what a ghost is. Is it something that's an intelligent thing that can see you and interact with you, or is it a replay of time that's like that's what people think? It's just something that's still there in the atmosphere and they can't see you, so it's kind of like they still think they're alive type. I've read that as well, in which case like, having a camera shouldn't affect that, but it would be whether they had a conscious mind and they would see the camera and be like, I don't want to do anything on camera, I don't want to be seen on camera. But then you also think a lot of ghosts died in the 15th, 16th century, won't even know what a camera is. So, like, do they even know what that little box is in your hand? Do they just think you're carrying a silver box?
That's a funny one, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got big plans for the future, and you want to visit the plague island, but it's off limits. But that's what you want to do next. It's
been a bucket list of mine and Chris's for about 10 years. This island is in Venice, but I mean, I don't know if you've seen. Venice is like there. You've got the city, and then you've got like the lagoon.
I've been to Venice, yeah.
It's about 2 miles out of Venice in the sea. There's this island. And it's like off limits to the public, you can't go there. But when the plague hit Europe in the 18th century, they used this as a quarantine station, and that's where the word quarantine comes from, that island, because quarantine means 40, it's like a Latin 40 days. So all the ships that came in, like goods ships and merchant ships, had to dock in these islands for 40 days because they were worried that you would bring the plague in. And anyone who had the plague was sent to these quarantine islands. And they reckon on Poveglia, it's a tiny island. It's less than much less than a square mile. Very tiny. There's been about 160,000 deaths on this island, and the building's still there. The old quarantine hospital is still there. It's all abandoned. You can walk in it. You can go around it, and the beds are still there. And
I mean, that's going to be.
And then to make it worse, after the plague, I mean, there's like 2 islands. There's like a bridge that links to the next island. There's the burning fields where they just used to burn all the bodies, and they reckon 50% of the soil there's human ash. It's like the whole place is like it's messed up. And then after that, in the 19th century, they opened it up as a mental hospital. And there was a crazy doctor who apparently committed suicide in there. And there's so much, this place is just messed up. And there's even like there's a famous painting of like those old Renaissance paintings where they were like naked women, and it was like the way they draw them. It was like a soft, like women posed for like. There's a really famous one of those, and the artist he died on Poveglia. He was one of the plague victims. It was like even the most famous people in Italy at the time. That artist, like you were still in a mass grave. It was you can see that there's actually a stone like an angel on the site where all the bodies are, and it's messed up. It's like they reckon it's the most haunted place on earth, but the only way you can get to it is if you get someone to take you like in a boat. So you can't like go on a public tour, or you can't. The police can be a bit funny if they catch people going there, and so you've got to get someone who's willing. And a lot of fishermen will not go near it because they bring their nets up. They'll find bones in there. There's so much around there.
Really,
the whole island. You think it's the feeling of oppression, like in the atmosphere. When you think that people were taken there, even if you were just believed to have the plague, even if you didn't have it.
Right.
So there's. if a baby would cry for no reason, they'd be like, why is that baby still crying? That's not right. Maybe it's got the plague. So they would take the baby. And the horrible things on this island, people who didn't have the plague but maybe coughed were taken there. And then obviously when you get taken into quarantine and put on a plague island, you will catch the plague. It's the whole place is just weird.
It sounds like a bit like when they used to burn the witches, like if, you know, or drown the witches. If she drowns, what's the story of if she floats?
If she floats, it means she's a witch, but then they're going to kill her anyway.
They're going to kill you anyway.
So
if she drowns,
you've got no way out.
She wasn't a witch.
I mean, Newcastle's got its own witch story. I mean, you look at St Andrew's Church. They say that the witches from the Newcastle witch trials are buried in there.
Where's St Andrew's Church again?
If you know where New Look is, so you go, is it Blackett Street, and then you go underneath Eldon Square, and then you've got like the church, and then you've got used to be like the magic box on that corner, and then New Look from Eldon Square there, and then you walk along the gate.
Yeah.
So it's like that church. There's stories about that being haunted. There was always a legend that there was a witch used to haunt it, but then the legend is that the witches that were executed in the Newcastle witch trials in the 1600s were apparently put in there. So,
all right.
And there's something I read about someone who found bones in there and took bones home with him, and stuff was happening in his house, and he was like, "Nah, I'm not keeping that." And he found a skull or something, and he took it home from that graveyard, and all sorts kicked off in his house, and he was just like, he blamed the skull for it. It was,
wow. I mean, Newcastle's got so much history, you know, especially the Castle Keep as well. I mean, that's an eerie place, and I recently bought kind of the history of Newcastle hauntings or something like that. I bought it for a friend, you know. I haven't actually read it, but like the book's about that thick. So there's a lot of stuff to get through on that book, but I mean, if there's anyone watching now for a really cool place to go, where would you recommend? In, like, say, the northeast? I think like a building you can go into, or a place you can, like, to this day you can do a ghost hunt in. Because some places they're a bit funny about it, but I would love to get in them. Like, I really love to get into the Tyne Theatre. I know every theatre, like, there's a bit of a what's it, like a superstition, like, you know, every theatre's got its own traditions, and it seems every theatre's got to have a ghost story. So the Tyne Theatre, you can't of West Road.
Yeah, so you can't say like Macbeth because everything's superstitious about theatres, but that theatre's had, you know, there's been accidents happening in that theatre, and it's built, I don't know if you know this, I did a tour of this last December before Christmas, and when you go like underneath the stage and then right to the back wall, it was built on a Jewish burial ground, and you can see where the graves were. So they just built it on a gravesite.
Oh, is that actually on your channel?
That's not on the channel. They've never let us go in and film. They've never.
Got you.
They've never let us go in there. I've tried for years, and they're like, "Nah, we're not." They won't even let other groups go in there. They're not interested. But
Tyne Theatre.
I'd love to. And it's an amazing old venue. It's like all old and
I've been in myself.
The doors don't even shut properly because they're too big for the door frames. It's like it's a proper rickety old building. It would make an amazing video. I'd love to do it, but they've never let us go in.
And I think you've got a book idea as well, haven't you? And like pen for the future and
I love to travel. I love to get abroad, and like the first thing I do when I get it, like, in, you know, I'll do it like a ghost walk, or I'll just try and find somewhere that's like, if I'm looking for accommodation, I'll find a hotel that's got like ghost stories, and I love to find out like about places. So I've over the past 3 or 4 years when I've gone abroad, I've just like gone to like Prague, and I went to Paris, and just, you know, most people go to Paris, they want to go to the Eiffel Tower, and they want to go to like Disneyland or something, and I was like straight into like the catacombs and finding like all the skulls and stuff, and it was incredible. So I've just like over the years just realised I've got like a collection of stories of all these places, and I thought if I could put like together a travel guide for people who could just go to like Paris and then straight and then they'd know where stories are, or go to Prague or go to Venice, and these are places that have got like a lot of history about them. And so I've spent a lot of lockdown sort of writing it. Whether I've never published a book before, so I'm gonna have to sort of like try and work out how to do it.
Yeah.
And, I don't even know how far off, because I keep getting to one bit and then I'm like, oh, I'll do more, and I keep finding more to write about, and it's like it's just getting bigger and bigger. So that's the plan. I'd love to have a book out, but I don't know, maybe like in a year or two's time. I'll only put it out when it's I think it's finished, when it's right.
Yeah, mate, sounds like a good plan. Is there anywhere people can contact you? And they've got a building somewhere that they want explored, or is there anywhere people can get in touch with you? And if you just want to drop your channel as well? Yeah,
so the channel's just Dead Air TV. So it's at youtube.com, and then it's like /Dead Air TV. So yeah, like and subscribe it. Again, you can contact us on social media like Instagram, Facebook. I'd love to, like, if someone's got a place and they definitely think there's something to it, or they'd be happy for me to go in and just record in there. Then I'm hoping to get in stories you've told about this place.
I think we should. I think we should do this. If Paul's watching, I think we should do this place. But you do this, not with you.
It's so big. I mean, you come along with it, and and I don't know what it's like in here at night, but it seems to be like endless corridors and stuff. But
it's quite cool here at night. It's I've definitely seen somebody in that lift.
Yeah, and, it's interesting that.
Yeah, if someone had acknowledged us, like
even just look at you.
No, it didn't even look.
Yeah,
he didn't even look at us. He just was fixated.
You remember like what he was wearing, or?
Yeah, I do, but I kind of want to clarify this with Paul first, because I just want to ask him a couple of things to see if he knows him, to think of him if it was just someone in the building.
So people think as well, like, for somewhere to be haunted, someone's got to have died there.
Yeah,
but there's so many hauntings where it's like, for so and so, like, he loved this was his favourite drinking spot, so he haunts this place. Or this was, like, my friend's got a snooker club and they've got, poltergeist activity. They've had stuff happen, things have been seen in there, but they've got no records of anyone dying in there. So that was a bit odd. But they think maybe it's been an ex-customer who just he spent all of his time there. It's his favourite place. He was always in there every night. And then, like, when he's died, it's like that's where he's gone. Or sometimes goes. So there's this theory that people think that you always have to have someone who's died, or there's been an accident or something.
Yeah.
But maybe there's been, I don't know, maybe someone just has a really close connection to this building, or for whatever. You even got to think what was here before this building, because I don't know how old this place is. But Market Street's one of the oldest streets in Newcastle. Isn't it? So when they used to have the name came when they used to have markets here, and then it's got to be a lot of history around here. It has to be. Yeah.
Couple of ghost things got to have happened around here, definitely. But hi Rob, thanks for coming down.
No, thanks for reaching out.
It's been really good. Like come down, sharing some of your stories, and hopefully we'll meet again. And maybe on a ghost hunt or something.
We'll have to get you on a ghost hunt. You need to have experienced.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I'll be well up for it. Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Thanks for coming.
Cheers, man.